You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 74. I'm Clark from 5 Card Guys on Instagram, and with me co-hosting is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards. But missing in action this week is John, who is playing in his house league, Hockey League playoffs. So good luck to John, and not to worry, we should have him back. Sorry?
It's men's league, right?
Men's league.
Okay,
men's league.
Yeah, he might get mad at you for calling it house league. It's probably Bush League, men's league hockey.
My bad, John. Good luck anyways. But we should have him back next week. When the playoffs are done. All right, off the top today, just want to get your thoughts on another record-breaking sale in the hobby. You know, who says the hobby is dead, right? This another record-breaking sale is, of course, the iconic Honus Wagner T206 baseball card.
Nuts.
Graded SGC 2. That sold for $7.25 million.
Wow.
in a private sale facilitated by Golden Auctions. So your thoughts, Hyung, on this sale, and for those who don't know why this card is so iconic, I could fill in some details why this card is actually considered by some the Mona Lisa of baseball cards. But yeah, your thoughts on this $7.25 million sale.
Was this the same card that was, the record before the previously, or?
I think so. The $6.6 million, right?
Right. Right before it was the SGC2, I believe. I could be wrong, but I guess it's just increased. And this is the card that we thought might break that 8-figure mark earlier this year, but it looks like it's kind of leading up to the hype of that mantle card, right? And for sure, vintage is definitely sparked the vintage market for sure. And we kind of guessed that, but it's interesting to see all these record sales. I don't know if it's something to look too much into, because there's a lot of factors obviously with these key players constantly being the ones who are selling these, right? So, I don't think it could be bad for the hobby. I'm just glad it's not based off a Triple Men logo, of LeBron that we're talking about. We're actually talking about, like you said, Mona Lisas, right? So, but what do you have a backstory on this Wagner card?
Yeah, I do. So, people might be wondering, why would this card be $7.25 million? And it's for many collectors, especially vintage baseball collectors, this is more like art, almost like you treat it as traditional artwork because of the history behind this card. But before I get into that, as a player, he was a pretty good player for the Pittsburgh Pirates. He had a career average of .328 in just under 2,800 games played from 1897 to 1917, so true vintage card.
Crazy.
There's thought to be fewer than 50 authenticated copies in existence. And the story behind this particular card is that Wagner, who is a Hall of Fame shortstop, that he was actually upset about his likeness being used on a tobacco product. It's a T206 card that you can find in tobacco products. So he refused American Tobacco Company's request to use his image, and that led to the company stopping production of that card. So it really capped the production level and contributed to this scarcity of the card.
Wow.
Right?
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that was a cool backstory behind Honus Wagner, and just his involvement with the hobby in those early days.
That's nuts, and I assume that it's that's 100 plus years old. Look at the color on that thing. The thing is gorgeous. It's
bright.
It definitely is like art. After even we talk about the 52 mantle and all these other iconic cards. At now, especially with the hobby the way it has been over the last couple of years, and now focusing the attention to kind of these vintage art pieces, this is exactly where I think the foundation of the hobby needs to be. So like I and the card, I just pulled it up now. It's just incredible.
It's beauty.
Like over 100 years of, and then how bright the coloring is still for that. But looks like a PSA 10 though.
Right. Oh man, yeah. No, it's a real beauty, and yeah, it's definitely a work of art. And when you get to that level, right? Like for high-end collectors, it's just one of those things you gotta have if you have the money.
For sure, it's a flex. It's like at that point, it's like 7.25. No problem, man.
Drop in the bucket, right? Well, congratulations to whoever the buyer is. Enjoy that card. I hope we get to see it. Like the one thing, I just saw a movie called The Price of Everything, which focused on, you can see it on Amazon Prime if you have a Prime subscription, but it focuses on the high-end art world. Whoever the buyer is, you hope that it will see the light of day again.
Right.
Like it could be maybe kept in someone's home or security, or some people collect it, so it could really just be in a box,
right.
A security deposit box somewhere, and then maybe they'll flip it again in a few years, right? But hopefully it's one of those things like, we get to see in a museum like setting, because that'll be kind of cool to see in person. All right, with that, let's go on to our next regular segment we call Hobby Headlines. All right, so another piece of news you might have heard in the hobby is the sale of the Julio Rodriguez Bowman Chrome Red Refractor, numbered to 5, graded a BGS 9.5 Gem Mint with 10 auto, and it went for a cool $276,000 on Golden Auctions.
Insane. What a sale.
Big money.
What a
money.
sale.
Yep, and we also learned, actually, from collector C. Blez on Instagram that he used to own that card, right?
That's right.
Which he bought off someone for, I believe, $3,500, right? And he later flipped it for $12,000. So that's a pretty good flip.
He did well, but not obviously missed the boat.
Not as well as the 276K sale that we just saw recently.
That's crazy.
So it's pretty nuts. But you know what? For this segment, I wanted to ask you, Hyung, for those hoping to make this kind of incredible flip someday, or wishing that they can, you really got to know a little bit about prospecting, right? And figuring out which prospects and rookies even have that kind of upside.
Right.
Okay, so I know you and I both love prospecting in the hobby because we love ripping our Bowman Chromes every year. So I thought maybe we can talk about what we look for in potential prospect candidates, like who do we like to target, generally speaking, that might be underrated now but could be that next flip in a few years for 5 and even 6 figures.
I think that's the chase. It's the chase. It's the hype that that lures everybody in, and it's
for sure.
It's I think there half of the camp is like it makes zero sense, because if you look at it from a logical perspective, people use the logic. They haven't played a single game yet. You guys are paying thousands for a card that is worth more than someone who's played in the majors and had a decent career already, right? So that's the logic. But I think it's important to understand it's two different markets. There's two different life cycles, and they serve two different markets essentially, because the minor league season is very, very important for the market, right? And it is the reason why people like it so much is you've seen it. Like look at the sale of that Julio. Like for someone to be able to overpay at the time, right? They say $3,500, right? Overpay at the time, saying you're crazy for $12,000, right? But it's the same people that are making the successful flips on the higher end prospecting game, right? And does it make sense from that logic that we discussed earlier? Absolutely not, right? But the markets are different, right? So if a player, for instance, like I don't see that volatility of pricing with non-top 100 prospect players. So it's not like it's like, oh my God, Julio Rodriguez has like absolutely dominated the big leagues right now, and that's why his prices are going crazy. It's like you got to understand, Julio Rodriguez was one of the top prospects coming up, and a lot of hype was built behind him. And you look at all those guys: Acuna, Wander Franco, Bobby Witt Jr., Spencer Torkelson, all these guys over the last couple of years, they were hyped so much that, when reality kind of hits, because obviously baseball is a very tough game. You got to understand, you're not going to hit 330 with 50 home runs and 130 RBIs every single year. It's a very, very tough game. So when reality hits, and when we discussed this earlier in the beginning of the year with Wander Franco, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. At best, what he's going to put like a 280, 290 season with 20 home runs, and he's falling behind that. So it's like, as you see, prospecting can get dangerous and life cycles do expire, when you should sell and when you shouldn't sell. I think that's a very important factor. And also, it's driven by performance and where they sit in the top 100 prospect list. And not only that, you got to filter out all positions. We're talking only premium positions. So it's your typical shortstop gets the love. Usually corners not as much, but your outfielder, center fielder, or right fielder, corner outfielder has to hit home runs, and your center fielders look like Acuna, right? Good point. So it's like stuff like that where these guys are the blue chip, the next coming essentially. And the reason why prices are this inflated is because the potential of making a flip like that red J-Rod, right? So it's like, it doesn't make sense, but at the same time, it's a totally different market with different timing. And it plays with, like, you and me, we love ripping Bowman, flagship, and part of that, chase is you get the prospects, right? You look to follow a kid's career because you truly believe that, like Juan Soto, when in 2016, there's a lot of people that, followed him that whole process, right? And if you do that early enough, you could potentially do well. But it does get a little tougher, I find, lately, because so many people are in it. Everybody wants the reds and oranges of the hyped prospect, and that's why you have inflated prices too. So
true. I like how you mentioned that there are two different markets, because I think a lot of people make that mistake, right? Making the comparison between Albert Pujols, like a player like Albert Pujols, with J-Rod, and you look at the prices, but you're not catering to the same market.
No, not at all.
Point.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's a good point. And, also, like, I was going to mention, like, for me personally, I like to always look at the top 100 list. Mm-hmm. And, like, when you read the top 100 scouting reports and those lists, like, at the top 10, they're all pretty similar.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And now in the hobby, we see, like, the cards of those top 10 prospects are pretty inflated. Like, a lot more people are getting to the prospecting game too.
Right, yeah. And sometimes you're right. It doesn't make sense. Even now, like, it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, for sure. Your number 10 guy. So now you got to either look at the 11 to 20 guys to see if there's any potential. Right. Which there might be. There's been cases where people make the leap.
Well, it's because it's like, if he hits 220, let's just say, and he's in top 10, people are still like, dumping money into him, right? So because he's still in the top 10 prospect, right? So like guys like Khalil Watson, for instance, like his price is tanked. He's hitting, 200 or 210, whatever he's hitting. He was one of the biggest prospects coming into this draft, and biggest hype of kind of like this off season, or I guess leading towards this 2022 season. And he's had a subpar season, and his prices just absolutely started tanking, but they still sell. Like, people are still buying still, right? So,
yeah. You know what? Like, with prospecting too, you got to be patient, right? You got to wait years to see that ROI, if any. It is risky because you could see a zero ROI for sure.
Absolutely.
Like for me, and this is only what I do in terms of prospecting, I like to look at the top 5 guys that are probably already at inflated prices. And, they're top 5 for a reason, right? They've shown in the minors consistently they could produce at each level of A-ball, and, they're there for a reason. But, when they get into the bigs, there's always that transition period, and then there's, usually that drop off in price when the shine kind of wears off in their first trip to the bigs. But with those top 5 guys, if you believe in them and you could be patient with them, like those are the best opportunities for me to pick up some of their cards, And I like to see, like, each year it's different, because what I've recognized, like even this year, you got your Bobby Witt, Julio, and Torkelson, right? Those are probably the 3 guys that were in the spotlight to begin this year. And I don't think J-Rod was number 1. He might have been on some people's list.
No,
but
I think Witt was hyped.
Bobby Witt, right?
Hyped more. Yeah, for sure.
So I always look for like the number 2 or 3 guys, like the guys that are getting just a little bit less attention, and just like, their value is kind of deflated compared to, those other 2 or 3 guys that are getting the spotlight. Those are the guys I like to really target. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and then if you really believe in them, like this year would have been a perfect example. Like you could have probably got J-Rod for a lot cheaper than Bobby Witt at the beginning of the season, and now who's laughing, right? if you buy a lot of J-Rod cards, and like for basketball, it's the same thing. Ja Morant versus Zion, both elite prospects and rookies, but who got the most of the attention?
Zion did. Yeah, he did. And then
100%.
Ja was the number 2 guy that kind of came from the back,
Yep. And his prices, it just reflected in the prices. You could have got it for a lot cheaper than Zion. And, if you believed in both, ideally you would collect both, but the higher upside play would have been going for Ja Morant that year.
For sure. And it's interesting, though, to see kind of like, okay, if you look at the First Chrome brand, like it has such a strong brand. Like if you think about it, like everybody knows First Chromes. They are the grails essentially, right? And but like where did this all stem from? This was from the 2009 Bowman Chrome Trout, right? Obviously he basically put that staple, right? So we talked about where prices are. So just to be realistic, it's like what you kind of look at Trout prices of his color Refractor selling, those record sales that, Vegas Dave had and stuff. And people believe in the next Trout. They're looking for the next Trout. So even at $276,000, that red Julio that sold, like, people are looking for the next Trout, and people say that's even insane. I say that's even insane until he flips it for $2 million, and we look like idiots again, right? So it's never a stopping game with the brand, and I think because of what Trout did to the market, I think there's a lot of brand presence in Chrome that I don't think they're gonna lose. So I think a lot of people are after. I mean, if you think about it, there's only 5 red refractors, true red. So I mean, you're talking super low pop on some of these cards, right? So
yeah, that's a good point. The Bowman Chrome brand play is pretty significant for sure. And and like the true hardcore like investor types, that's why they're going for like red refractors of even much lesser prospects, because you never know. It could be a lotto ticket, right?
And the other thing though, Clark, that kind of like if you kind of like really think about it, I'm going to throw 2 names out: Yordan Alvarez, Bo Bichette. Okay. Yep. Their First Chrome prices. You know what I mean? So it's like, will Julio be better than Yordan Alvarez in terms of numbers? Maybe, potentially, but Yordan's pretty damn good. I mean, he's probably one. If you look at Yordan's 162 game average on Baseball Reference, because they have that 162 game average, it makes people look silly. It's like if I was hitting 30 home runs a year, like I would be like lacking behind Yordan Alvarez by a lot. He's averaging like 45 plus in a 162 game season. So it's like his prices are dirt cheap if you look at like modern prospects. So you even see the transition from like you have a first stage of when they sign, let's just say in the Dominican Summer League or Venezuelan Summer League, when they're 17, some as early as 16 or 17, they sign for $3 million. That's when their first Chrome card comes out. And then they have this period from basically, 18 years old when they come from the islands to basically the U.S. Basically they're trying to get past A ball, right? So there's that first kind of like, because after A ball, once you get into double A, this is where things start changing. You know, the top prospects become like the Julios, the Bobby Witts, and then a lot of the guys get filtered out. People have to understand that. Like, we're talking the best of the best, the top notch players, right? And a lot of people go into prospecting because this 18-year-old or 19-year-old guy's in A-ball hitting 30 home runs, hitting 300, saying, you know what, this guy's the next Ronald Acuna Jr. And then, you know, next season he's 19 years old and he's, you know, in high A now, and he hits, you know, 260 with, you know, 10 home runs, and people are like, what's going on, right? And that's the reality of cycles too. It's like, you know, that double A to the big leagues is a different game. There's going to be different price actions. And then from there, when they get into the big leagues to kind of like your first 5 years, this is where it kind of tanks, to be honest, right? Unless your last name ends in Soto, you know, or like Tatis, like, you know, your prices kind of stay relevant. But overall, you look at Yordan Alvarez, man, that guy's one of the best big league hitters. How many more seasons? Even Vladdy's prices are stagnant in terms of first chromes, right? So there's a point where that hype dies down, is what I'm saying. Because as baseball players play normal, like good, they're still playing amazing, like Hall of Fame baseball. People like get less emotional, I guess, about it, right? So yeah.
No, that's a really good point. I think what it is too is like with prospecting, the potential is infinite, right?
Right.
And then as you play more, you're like, okay, we're seeing true potential. Like, we're seeing what the cap is. Like, no, you know, honestly, any young minor league stud is Superman at that point. They could do anything, right? Potentially.
Right, exactly.
But then, you know, like, reality hits, and then okay, everyone has to recalibrate.
But I think that's the beauty of the way this baseball system is. So you got the 2022 Bowman release, so you got all your international signings, right? Or at least the hyped ones, right? And then so everybody's looking forward to that, because people who are diehard fans in terms of like following prospecting, even following minor league baseball in a kid's career, like that's what you're kind of like approaching, right? So
well, just to kind of add to that, then like really, if we're honest, like, prospecting is so risky, right? Like, you're gonna probably, well, not even probably, you're definitely gonna lose out more than you win in terms of like the number of players you're actually guessed right on. Right. But the thing with prospecting is you really just need to hit one really big one, right? That could cover all your losses.
And I don't think it's quantity, like investing in quantity players. You know, like you're trying
so
to.
Many.
Yeah, there's so many, but it's also plays in factor. You could actually have a guy that is not worth that much, but then you sell at the right time and still make money off of it, because the way I was saying, the way the system is, it's like it's always constant. There's new prospects coming in. The news just like hypes it up because these new prospects come in, and then in June, the annual draft comes, right? So everybody's watching this like, oh my God, this guy's the number one pick now. I can't wait until Bowman draft. And then, you know, the previous Bowman becomes irrelevant, and then everybody's chasing the draft, right? And then that's why prices are so high at release, right? It's like, that's why John always says never buy, you know, at release. He's right, because eventually, if you look year after year, those prices will be tanking on majority of those players, all those huge players, except for the Julio Rodriguez and Bobby Witts, the ones that everybody are chasing. So that's why it's like there's a reason why their prices are that high, even though it doesn't make sense. It makes sense if that paradox doesn't wrinkle your brain, Clark.
You gotta think about that one. No, it totally makes sense. Yeah, for sure. Like, I remember when I got back into the hobby, the boxes where Chris Bryant was the chase. Like, those cards like went up so high, you know, because Chris Bryant was the man. Remember?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And now, like, you know, it's tough for him to stay healthy in Colorado, out of all places. So, and those boxes are much more affordable now than it was before. And, like I remember Will Myers being the guy.
Yeah.
You could go back.
Oh, yeah.
You could go back and you're like,
Yeah.
well, these were the chase guys. And now they're like, regular guys, a little better than average. But yeah. But still fun to do. And I think if there's a tiebreaker in terms of who I want to collect in terms of prospecting, like I'm a fan of baseball. I know you're absolutely a fan of baseball. It's like we always say, collect what you love. Like I like to, if I can, collect players I want to root for more long term.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And here's another point. Like think about like big prospects. Okay. Those are the ones that are highly demanded at release. So first chrome. That's the time to really get it, because by the time Acuna becomes Acuna, by the time Soto becomes Soto, by the time Vlad becomes Vlad, if you want the rookie cards, there's going to be 17 available rookie cards. There's only one first chrome, right? And the true OGs know this, and this is why like people are off. Some people are completely off of like Topps Chrome and Topps. They don't really hold value from an investment standpoint until later on, in my opinion. And yeah, there's just so many options at that level that just brings so much more value from a collector standpoint in the first chrome, because honestly, there's not a lot of first chrome autos out there, right? So
true. Yeah, definitely there's scarcities in play for sure. All right, again, another reminder: prospecting, very risky proposition, but definitely fun to do if you're into it. And yeah, if you're all about it, good luck to you, and hopefully you can be the next guy that flips a J-Rod like card for six figures. That's we hear those stories but you got to remember, like, definitely few and far between. How many? If we shared all the stories of the boxes we ripped with absolutely zero in terms of value,
yeah, exactly,
then you'll see how much downside there is to playing the prospect game. All right, let's move on to our next segment we're calling Match Game. Okay, we did this segment before, but for the first time listeners, it's essentially our version of buy, sell, hold. So what I'm going to do is I'll throw out three names, and then Hyung, you tell me which one you would buy, which one would you sell, and which one would you hold of the three players given.
This always kills me because you put three players that I would buy, all buy.
That's the caveat. Like, you can't say I buy all three, I sell all three. Yeah, you gotta slot them, and you gotta match each name to buy, sell, hold. All right. Okay, first one. We did this before, but I think it's worth coming to this again because
it might change.
Things have changed, right?
Things
over
have
time.
Changed.
So this is our go-to three. Ronald Acuna Jr., Fernando
it.
Tatis Jr., and Juan Soto.
You're killing me.
At this point, which one are you buying? Which one are you selling?
I know this has changed for me.
Yeah, for sure. For me too.
Yeah, I'm selling Acuna. I'm holding Tatis, and I'm buying Soto.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
why are you selling Acuna?
Oh man, like I still like Acuna. Don't get me wrong.
You're an Acuna mega fan.
Oh, man, that like I said, for me, I stopped. My career changed in baseball when I snapped my leg in half. I tore my ACL, and it took me 14 months. I was never the same. I did my ACL like 2 more times. I actually have a torn ACL right now, but I know. Maybe it's the fear in me of his injury and his extent, and like for me, I extrapolate the data that the production that he's going through right now. He's never did what he's doing in his career ever. Like for me, it's like he's a 900 plus OPS guy, and he's falling well below kind of like that marker. So it just gives me a lot more concern than a guy like Soto, who's, already established, a lot, and for me, Tatis, he's kind of like injury prone too, but like for me, Tatis has the higher upside because his contract's bigger and, his numbers in his first, 3 seasons are a lot more impressive than Acuna's as well. So it's like I was hoping Acuna was kind of like that next Mike Trout, but I mean, he's going to have to really kind of step up. And remember what we talk about, these prospects coming up, they're like the hype prospects. So if they don't maintain their skill set, if they have one down year, people are going to give up on them, right? Because they think that the trajectory has to be every single year, which, I mean, you can't have too many bad years is what I'm saying, right?
Sure,
like you look at,
yeah.
you know, any GOAT type players that, you know, are truly worth investing in, I guess. And, you know, they have solid careers overall, and that's what you're looking for in terms of a long-term investment. So I don't know if Acuna is that guy right now. Like I'm a little scared just because you're in that like that fourth, fifth year period that we talk about. And if he doesn't hit 290 with 40 and 120, what's his card prices look like? A lot of that money was baked in already that he was going to be that guy, right? So Soto and Tatis, on the other hand, they're doing it. Tatis is doing it, and he hasn't even played, if that makes sense. You know, that's how good he is.
I was going to say, you're pretty high on Tatis, eh?
I am. I'm high on his talent. I'm high on his talent and his marketability and the type of person he is. I mean, when Soto signed with the Padres, and you look at that picture when Tatis, or the first game with Tatis and Soto looked like a little kid.
Right.
Beside Tatis. Like that's true. To me, that's like big. Like how is Soto's body going to age compared to Tatis's, right? Obviously that's like, people are like, you're crazy, but like for me, a 6'3", 6'4" body, that's like, you know, 10%, 11% body fat that, you know, is very, very athletic. To me, that's longevity. Shohei Ohtani, that's longevity, that body. Alejandro Kirk, like a body like that, you're not going to get 20 plus years out of that right. body is what I'm saying, right? So it's like Soto's like longevity, I'm not sure. Like of course, he's still young. Well, he claims to be that young, right? We never know, but right. you know, I'm just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. Just, you know, speaking my mind. Maybe I talk too much. I get a ruffle feathers, yeah.
Okay, I'll step in now. No, that I hear your points, but I guess for me it's like, what's my risk tolerance with Acuna, right? Like, right. Do I still believe he can make a comeback? You know, yeah, like his power isn't there right now, right? And but he's still stealing, he's still running the bases well, and I think there's a bit of load management. Like he hasn't played the full season. So I still am optimistic. So that's why I'm actually buying Acuna now, because his prices have gone down right. Significantly before he came back, right? And I am selling Soto, right? Although I love Soto, but I just feel like with the Padres news, like you could profit nicely right now right. and maybe get into him again in the off season. And I'm holding Tatis because he's coming back, and I'm sure if he performs like he should, fully healthy, then they'll just go up in value. So yeah, I'm buying Acuna, holding Tatis.
That probably would have been my other option. Either way, I'm holding Tatis.
Right. Okay, let's go to basketball for our next group of names: Kevin Durant, Giannis, and Luka.
This one's tough. Man. I'm going to say I'm holding Durant. I'm buying Giannis. I'm selling Luka.
Okay, wow.
I know.
Selling Luka.
I know. I'm selling Luka because I feel like the markets are correcting itself for truer value. Although maybe not applying to... Well, it still applies to what we talked about with the prospecting, but I think you just look at the careers that were established, you know, and what Giannis is doing, man. Like, if he does this for another, 10 years, this guy's gonna be, he's gonna be something, right? So it's like I think he's still a buy. To me, KD's established his career already, and Luka's still, 22 years old, 4 seasons under his belt. He has no brass. He's gonna have to win right? And for me, it's like if we're talking a safer investment strategy, I'm going with expectation of market correction and what is the better buy at this point, or what is the safer buy, I guess, right? Because for me, I think Luka's prices could keep on correcting because they were so high before, right?
Yeah,
and we always say, what's that low point? What's that low point? Right? What if he doesn't? What if he gets injured? What if like all this stuff? What does that reflect on his price? What if he doesn't win another championship or even contend? Are people gonna MVP personal brass or silverware? Is he getting that even? Right? So it's like you got to remember, Giannis has some brass, KD has some brass, right? So for me, that's why I'm selling Luka. Although, I always want to buy Luka still, like, you know what I mean? It's just like, because you've seen so many prices over the years, you're just like, man, you know what? I would have, sold my liver for that card right. before, and now it's like $1,500, and we're like, It's crazy.
You got to buy low, man. Come on.
I know. I don't know what's happening to me.
That's okay. That's interesting. I am still really bullish on Luka. So, but I do agree with you that it's definitely correcting. It's correcting more than Durant or Giannis, in my opinion, right? Because it was so inflated during the hype of the hobby. So I'm actually holding Luka. I have Luka. That's what I'm actually doing with my Luka Silver Prism, for example. I'm holding because I just feel that he's going to have a really great career. And I think, him being out of shape at the start of this past season, I think that was a lesson learned for him. So I'm really expecting better things from Luka right out of the gate. Durant, I'm holding Luka. I really want to buy Durant. I know people either love or hate him, but you just can't argue with his career stats at this point.
Yes.
I don't care where he goes, if he stays or goes with the Nets. It doesn't matter, right? When it's all said and done, I'm looking for a nice, affordable, high-end Durant, if possible, right, while the market's kind of down, because I think that'll be a solid investment. And I'm selling Giannis. I love Giannis as a player. I love him as a person. He's a funny guy, it seems, and everyone loves Giannis. And he's really the Greek freak, you know what I mean? Like, he's super talented, top-tier player. But I don't know, for some reason, there doesn't seem to be as much hobby love for Giannis, even after winning a championship. And so at this point, I'm selling Giannis unless he's super cheap. But out of the three, I'm selling Giannis, buying Durant, holding Luka. All right, we'll end off with football because football season's coming soon, or fairly soon. Russell Wilson, who plays for the Broncos now after leaving the Seahawks.
Right, that's right.
Jalen Hurts, getting a lot of buzz with the Eagles. And Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens. One of those Durant guys, you either love him or hate him too.
Oh man, this one's tough because I don't know about Russell Wilson in terms of his market. I know his market is cheap. I think his Topps Chrome PSA 10
yeah.
2012. I think it's like $300, maybe less. Mm-hmm. So I still think Russell Wilson has. He's a potential Hall of Famer and has a lot of upside still. So I'm gonna buy Russell Wilson. I think I'm basing this all off of a safer strategy. All my picks, the first three were more safer. I'm selling Jalen Hurts, and I'm holding Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson's prices are pretty cheap. You could get some pretty good cards, and he I think has a chance, man. He has incredible athletic ability and can really I think spark. I just think he's too cheap to sell right now, but I think Jalen Hurts, I was disappointed in his last season, to be honest, and he's not someone who throws a lot, so I'm cashing out on Jalen Hurts.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what I don't know if you heard it too, but there's a lot of buzz for Jalen Hurts coming into the season. Like, the Eagles seem retooled and maybe he has some more people to pass to. And yeah, and he seems like off the field, he's a super nice guy. Like, he's got good head on his shoulders. But I'm selling Jalen Hurts. I'm selling whatever hype, preseason hype there is on him. I'm selling because it's hard to be the top guy as top QB in the NFL.
You got so many guys ahead of Jalen Hurts. Is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you always have the next crop of stud rookie QBs that could overtake him at any point. So yeah, I'm selling Jalen Hurts. I'm holding Russell Wilson. I think he's established quite a career, and I think it'll go up eventually. I agree with you; it's pretty cheap right now. And I'm buying Lamar Jackson. I think it's a riskier play. Like he's had a really good season with his MVP year, and then he's had a down season, so you don't know what you're gonna get. But he can still run. He's still pretty dynamic. I could see him out of the three really having price volatility. Like he could really spike if he puts another good season together because he's done it before. Right. So yeah, I'll take the risk and buy Lamar Jackson.
Nice.
All right. Yeah, that's our match game segment. We'll think of another one with John when he comes back on this show in a future episode. All right, let's end off this episode with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. And again, if you're a first-time listener, this is when Hyung and I will throw out two names or two cards, and then we debate which one we would rather invest in. All right, so Hyung, you want to start off?
All right, and I think I know your answer because I think I know you. I know your strategies a lot more these days. Like it's becoming more defined, and it's funny because we kind of switched because I was a lot more riskier, and you're less riskier, and it flip flopped, right? So I already know your answer to this. With that being said, but I wanted to basically lay it out there for our previous discussion in terms of first chromes and values, right? So 2018. Bowman first chrome, Yordan Alvarez auto. Okay, this guy's hitting 300 with 30 home runs. Unbelievable hitter. And his BGS 9.5 auto, last couple months sold for $450 to $600. So between that range, right?
Yeah.
So that's a base auto. Versus a 2020 Bowman first chrome, Jason Dominguez auto. Okay, BGS 9.5. They're closing at $600 to $700. So here's the perfect example of Jason Dominguez, a 19-year-old kid who is a switch hitter, hasn't played one single major league game, right? Was one of the most hyped prospect coming into it, and then this year was a very early disappointment where a lot of people kind of came off of him, right? Whereas Yordan Alvarez is having a career year for him, and he's established. He's established as an all-star in the major leagues, and it looks like he's gonna have a very, very nice career. In terms of becoming an all-star every year. So, what do you think? What are you gonna go for? The young prospect like we talked about, the guy who doesn't make sense, or the guy who makes sense?
Yeah. You know what I'm going for.
I
Jason
know.
Dominguez.
100%. I knew it.
That's, you know what? That's so true. When you said we kind of flipped in terms of our risk appetite, I guess.
Yeah.
Actually, you're still pretty risky, but I've become a little bit more riskier than I was for sure.
Yeah.
And for me, it makes sense at that price point, or I'm willing to take the risk at that price point.
Right.
I wasn't willing to take that risk out when it was like $1,500,
right?
When the hype was going on, but at $600-700, I know that's not super cheap, and for some people that's expensive risk, right? To pay for a guy that hasn't played in a single MLB game, but I like the hype behind him still. What I was saying before in our prospecting segment, the hype's died down a little bit, but is he still mashing bombs? That's what I heard lately.
Yeah.
He's still
he's
able
legit.
to crush the ball.
I'm telling you, this guy's legit, man. This guy's a good little player. Like, he's gonna be a nice little player.
See, that's all I need to know, right? And
but Yordan hit 30 home runs and
I know
less than 400 at bats.
All I can say is life's not fair.
Life is not fair. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about two different markets. Because I'm picking Dominguez too. It just makes so much sense. I like Yordan. I've had Yordan cards for the last 2 years now. And honestly, he could hit 70 home runs. His cards won't move. His card prices won't move. I'm telling you, they're just like sitting sideways, man. I'm telling you. So for that reason, I know Dominguez prices are gonna go skyrocket next year when he moves up the prospect ladder. He's gonna have an instructional league under his belt. He's 19 years old right now, so another instructional league in the fall, right? And then going into his 20th year and in A ball with 2 years now under his belt. I think he's gonna jump the ladder next year, and he's gonna be one of the biggest prospects in the game. So that's why I'm gonna pick Dominguez. I think he's cheap because he was so expensive before. He was the chase. Bobby Witt Jr. was really cheap at the time. He was the number 2 guy, and I remember his refractor selling at $600, a BGS 9.5 auto for Bobby Witt Jr.'s refractor autos. This is near release time too, just the year after when it kind of died down, and Dominguez was going for 2,000 plus. So it's like crazy. Insane, yeah. And Bobby Witt Jr.'s in the big leagues, right? So, it doesn't make sense, but Dominguez, it is.
After this podcast, I'm going to try to go shopping.
that's what you say. I've been looking for Dominguez, just because it's so expensive, but it's tough to find. But good luck. Let me know if you find them.
Thanks. Actually, while we're recording, I just bid on a Ronald Acuna Bowman Chrome base auto.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I just lost out on it. Shoot, I should bet. I bet 1577 because it was at 1500 with a few seconds left, and it sold for 1602.
Oh, so you were probably close.
Yeah, I was.
It was a BGS 9.5.
BGS 9.510, yeah. So it's come down quite a bit.
I honestly, I don't remember the last time it was that cheap. It was definitely pre-COVID for sure.
Anyway, that's a aside, but yeah, I like that pick one choice. All right, so we'll go with mine. So we talked about the Julio Rodriguez Red Refractor, 2019 Bowman Chrome prospect autograph, number 5, of course, graded BGS Gem Mint 9.5, 10 auto. Sold for $276K, right? Like we said. But there was another card that sold for $276K, same golden auction. Probably got overshadowed by the J-Rod sale, but that card is the Derek Jeter SP Foil Rookie PSA 10.
Yikes.
Sold for the exact same amount, $276K. Which one are you going for?
You know what? This is an easy one for me, actually.
Okay. I'm actually curious.
Really?
Because I can see it going either way.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't know. That PSA 10 foil is should be on everybody's grail card list.
Okay, yeah. Actually, I thought you would go that way.
I mean, 21 in existence out of 21,000 graded. 21 exists. You're talking about a less than 1% gem rate, okay, on this SP foil. And you know how hard it is even to get a 9 in that card, right? So PSA 10 to me is gonna be kind of like an iconic card, like the not as iconic obviously as the Mantle, but the 93 SP is that iconic card. I can't say the same for J-Rod to be honest. I really like J-Rod. Dude's 21 years old and he just played one season in the big leagues. Derek Jeter completed his whole career, and we're talking kind of like similar type cards where it's just, $250,000. So for me, I'm 100% going Derek Jeter, PSA 10, SP foil. Not even a question.
Okay. Well, like in April of this year, it sold for $600K, right?
Right.
So
the Jeter, right? The
Jeter, yeah.
Yeah.
So 4 months later, it's at 60% off. 4 months later,
right?
So it's trending. It's trending a certain way, right?
It has nothing to do with the player or card. It's just like Clark's ready to shop. It's numbers. Black Friday.
And J-Rod's already going up, right? We talked about it from 3.5K to 12K to 276K.
Right. Okay, I see your strategy. You have the protractor out, measuring graphs and seeing previous sales and buying at the dip, eh? Okay.
So I'm going with Jeter too. It's sale price, but there's a part of me though that's like the next one that comes up, it could go either way, right? Like I could see it going below 276K again, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And like we talked about before, double down. Yeah. With Jeter.
Yeah. You buy another one at the dip, right?
The dollar cost average with those two PSA 10 Derek Jeters. It's if he had that money to play around with, obviously that's it seems like a good deal now. But at the same time, hey, is it crazy to see, J-Rod Red Refractor going higher than 276K?
I think
it looks like he's a lock for AL Rookie of the Year, right?
For sure.
He's going to come back on Friday. That's the latest I heard. So it wasn't a significant injury that he's been on. But yeah, I'm going to play it safe in this case with my $276,000.
Yeah, good idea.
All right. Thanks, guys, for listening to another episode of Cards to the Moon. We really appreciate all the support. Like we said in the last episode, I think we gave a few shout outs to some of our subscribers that left positive comments and feedback and 5-star reviews. So we really appreciate all you guys. And we'll be back for another new episode next week. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.